Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that and ask you guys if you knew about any of the other people that they've taken. Have any of these people been released? Any idea where they're going? Is there any pattern to it? Are they all, prominent activists? Or people being targeted? Like, what's the situation?
Do you want to take this, Alex, or
no? You go for it.
Roxanne both. So I talked to Mark Pettibone, who he was mentioned in that OPB article, that fantastic article by Jonathan Levinson and Conrad Wilson. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the one that like every national paper wrote for, including the New York Times, but OPB was the one that broke that. This gentleman, Mark Pettibone, he's the one who says that he was walking away from the protests on just after 2 a.m. on July 15th, and a van came up to him, and guys in camo jumped out, and he's like, "What? Why?" And they said, "No, it's okay, it's okay." One guy said, "No, it's okay, it's okay," and then grabbed him, threw him in the van. Another guy pulled his beanie over his head, and they took him to what he later found out was the federal courthouse. They didn't charge him with anything. They didn't give him any documents. They didn't tell him like what agency they were with, and they just released him after 2 hours. And he still has no idea like who they were, what law he broke. So that's Mark Pettibone. His friend Connor O'Shea, who was with him, who was also trying to avoid the federal agents, he said, "I didn't know if they were Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, or what," which is something that like a lot of people have talked about, because they dress in camo with no like insignias, the same way that Oath Keepers dress, right?
These
right.
far right.
Yeah.
Militant guys, yeah.
So we found out since then that they're CBP, right? Mm-hmm. That's confirmed. Mm-hmm. Does that? Yeah. I just was wondering from your reporting earlier. Does that tie in and make sense? Has CBP been there for a while and coordinating with Portland PD, or is that surprising?
So CBP. I feel like 4 or 5 different federal agencies have been responding to these protests actually for a while, but the majority of them are just agents and officers who already live and are located in Portland. There's a ICE detention, very small ICE holding place here. There's folks who work at the federal courthouse doing security and stuff, and so those people have been coming out and kind of guarding the federal courthouse for a minute, but quite different than the response we saw after 4th of July, or kind of right before 4th of July, from these kind of extra officers who were sent by DHS, Homeland Security, but are also part of Border Patrol. And I think, it's important to point out that the federal officers have been kind of engaged in this for a while. It's just this broader group of kind of heavily trained agents with DHS and with Border Patrol who showed up in town recently. So I think that wasn't too surprising.
And can you talk more about these like the white supremacist organizations and their relationship with law enforcement, whether it's on the federal level or the local police? What do you think should be done about this? I mean, Arun talked about the fear and how he thinks that the police kind of intimidate politicians, which is something I've thought about sometimes with like Bill de Blasio. And I wonder, like, does he actually risk? I don't know if this is true. I wonder sometimes, though, if Bill de Blasio actually feels like, I mean, he's a sellout in so many other ways, so probably wouldn't have to be this way. But if he actually feels like at risk, do you think that there is a safety issue where the politicians actually feel at risk, or is it more of an ideological thing?
I think if we're talking about at risk of not winning an election,
sure.
That's 100% what drives a lot of conversations here. And, I was just at a press conference for the Portland Police Association, which is the police union here, where the president and is flanked by his other leaders within the police union, decrying kind of the violence and calling on the mayor and other city commissioners to step up and kind of put an end to the nightly violence. And of course, the violence they're talking about is just coming from protesters. There's no acknowledgement of the way that their officers are acting. Right. So I mean, there's a ton of money in police unions. There's like such a history in how police unions shape a city and shape elections, and make sure that no checks and balances can really be made. That they're the absolute kind of opposite of transparency when it comes to how they allow or how they, through union contracts, how they push cities to lessen kind of their accountability measures on officers and penalties on officers. And so I think, far right white supremacist groups are always concerning, and their relationships with the police are equally concerning. I think in this exact moment in time, in Portland in the past, that's been a really big part of protests. We've had a ton of national attention for, the Proud Boys and for local kind of alt-right groups organizing it in Portland, because they know that there are people who don't want them there. But this moment in particular, I think, is much more about kind of the police good old boys than the alt-right that they're supporting. I mean, I know the classic characters who always come to town who are associated with these groups. None of them are really here right now. I mean, I think some were up in Seattle, but it's kind of a different conversation.